Hello, class. Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
I think
Good
should
morning, ma'am.
some more minutes for other people to join, or can I just begin with the session? I'm not sure. Okay, let's just wait for a minute more, and then I'll start. So let's begin with the session. I'll share my screen. Let me know, class, if my screen is visible and I am clearly audible to everyone.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, good morning, class. The topic for today's web development session is JavaScript, and my name is Jim, and I work as a cloud and infrastructure engineer at Larsen and Turbo Pune. So, let's move ahead with the agenda. So the agenda for today's session is like I'll be giving you a brief introduction about how HTML, CSS, and JavaScript differs, like what JavaScript is all about, how do we declare variables, keywords, and then how do we use string methods in JavaScript. So like talking about JavaScript class, it's mostly similar to C, C++, Java, and all those programming languages. Only the thing which is differing here is like the structure and the way we define JavaScript variables, functions, and all those things would be differing here, but the logic would always remain the same. Okay. So JavaScript, why do we use JavaScript is like JavaScript adds functionality to my program. Okay. So with like if I'm saying your functionality, what do I mean is, so in HTML, what we were doing was like HTML usually gives a structure to my web page. So let me just use a pointer. So for example, if we are filling any kind of job application forms, or if we are opening any kind of e-cart, or if we see Learnovate web page, so herein we'll see there would be a lot of buttons, and there would be a lot of functionality, there would be a lot of events which would be there. So for example, if I'm clicking on a button to upload my resume, so today I'll teach you how do we uh, add such kind of buttons, and how do we give functionality to my program mainly. So if we look into HTML, so what HTML was like, it was giving me a structure to my web pages. So for example, if I'm using HTML, it was giving a structure. So for example, whenever I'm writing my HTML program, so in the very beginning I'm writing HTML, and then I'm opening and then closing. So the reason why I'm using HTML is to give me a basic layout, or to give me a structure to write any kind of HTML programs. Okay. And talking about CSS is, so for example, to give any kind of beautification to my program, if I want to use inner HTML, or if I want to give some 3D effect to my images, or if I want to give a particular coloring. So in that case I was using CSS. So for those who don't know how do we use HTML and CSS, so in the upcoming sessions I'll teach you how do we add HTML and how do we use CSS in my programs. Okay. And talking about JavaScript class, it gives a functionality. So for example, if I have a calculator, okay, so the structure is what we can call as HTML, okay, for a calculator program, okay. And then if I want to beautify my buttons, or if I want to give some color codings to my button, or if I want to give a 3D effects to my button, so I would achieve that by CSS. And if I want to give any kind of functionality, so for example, if I am like on a click of a button I want to add two numbers, or on the click of a plus button I'm doing calculation of two numbers, so that functionality we can achieve by JavaScript. I hope I made it clear to everyone. Okay. So HTML. So JavaScript is one of the three programming languages all web developers should learn, and HTML is used to define content of my web pages. CSS is used to specify the layout of my web pages and to give some structure to my web pages. And JavaScript is mainly to give a behavior to my web pages. Okay. And JavaScript. So let's just start. So JavaScript program is a list of programming statements. It has functionality, as I told you. So like similar to other programming languages, we'll be having your keywords, variables, functions, and then we'll be having like how do we use string methods. So all those things in the later part of today's web development session I'll teach you how do we declare or how do we write even a first program for JavaScript. Okay. And like this is one of the most important parts class in JavaScript. So JavaScript is like highly case sensitive languages. So for example, if I am using document.write print statement, or if I'm using document.get element by id to get an id in my program, so in all those cases I have to make sure that I'm following a particular code of conduct, and I'm following a good, like I'm having a good practice of using capitalization of letters in that case. Because even if we are missing, um, like if something has to be in capital letters and we are writing into small letters, so we would not, we like in that cases we would always get an error, and we would like not be able to achieve our program. So we always have to make sure that we are maintaining a certain capitalization of letters whenever we are writing a JavaScript program. So like next topic is variables. So like I know everyone would be knowing how do what variables are, how do we declare variables, if all of you are knowing C++ and Java. So variables are class, variables are used to store values. So for example, I can all like without variables also we can just perform any kind of agenda. But to bring a like what do we say, to bring dynamism in my program, or if I want to add a lot of numbers, for example calculator. Okay, so if you're not having variables in that case in my program, so only like if I'm not using variables in that case, only I can perform an operation of 5 plus 5. Every time I have to use 5 plus 5 without variables. But if I'm using variables, I can just add any kind of numbers. I can take an input statement, I can take an output statement. In input statement I can give any kind of numbers in my outputs, and then I can perform any kind of operations in that case. So if I want to have the dynamic, or if I want to have different kind of operations, so in that case I'll be using variables in JavaScript. Today I'll teach you how do we declare variables, how do we use variables in any kind of JavaScript program. So variables are used to store values, and in JavaScript I'll be using var, let, and const to declare my variables. Okay. And to assign any kind of value to my program I'll be using equal to symbol here in JavaScript to assign values to my variables. Okay. And then the keyword which I'll be using today to define my variables would be var, let, and const. And then similar to other programming languages, as I told you, we can use arithmetic operators like plus, minus, into, division to compute the values. Okay. And then we have output statement also. So in C++, what we were using is we were using input .io, we were using scanf, printf statement. So in JavaScript, I'll be using all these output statements. So like inner.html, document.write, windows.alert, or console.log are the output statements which I'll be using in JavaScript. Okay, I'll teach you how do we use all this kind of statements. So for example, if I want my output to be in an alert box, so in that case, I'll be using windows.alert, or if I if I want writing into the HTML output using document.write, I can also use document.write if I just want to simply write in any kind of document. So in that case, I'll be using document.write. I'll be also using inner HTML. So inner HTML, if I want to define an ID or if I want to define any kind of unique identifications, so in that case, I'll be using inner.html. And if I want to write anything into my browser console, so I'll be using console.log printing statement. Everything is clear, class, until now? Or if there's any kind of doubts, you can always stop me and then I'll be happy to help. Or like my pace is fine, class. Anybody is having any um like if you're not able to understand my language, or if you want me to go a bit slow or fast?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So like in JavaScript, as I told you, I'll be using var, let, and const to declare my variables today. So these are some of the variables which I already told you. Apart from that, we have if condition. So if I want to use conditional statements in JavaScript, I can use if. This is also similar to C programming languages. So for example, if I want to use a if condition wherein I have to compare the marks, or if I want to make sure that where marks is less than 35, I want to print all those statements. So in that case, I can use if statements. So we have switch also. All this switch, for, function, return, try, all those statements are already there, and I know most of you would be knowing it. So switch, like if I want to use a block of statements to be executed in different cases, if I want to have a lot of cases and then I want to return a particular value, so in that case I can use switch statement. We have for, which marks a block of statements to be executed in a loop. We have function, we have inbuilt functions also in JavaScript. So we have date function, which is inbuilt, and then we have a lot of string methods, a lot of string functions which are inbuilt in JavaScript. And then if I'm using function, then I have to use return keyword to exit a function, and then try is there. So we have try catch block. So if I want to execute or implement error handling in a block of statements, I can use try. And then functions, as I told you. So JavaScript statements can be grouped together in code blocks inside curly braces. The purpose of code blocks is to define statements to be executed together. And then one place you'll find statements grouped together in blocks is in JavaScript function. So whenever I want to declare JavaScript function, I have to use the function keyword. And then after using my function keyword, I have to make sure that I am declaring my function within curly braces. Okay, similar in C also, we were declaring our functions into curly braces only. And then whenever I'm declaring my function, I have to make sure that I'm giving my function name. Any kind of function name would do here, but I have to use round brackets also whenever I'm declaring my function names. Okay, and this is my basic structure for my this is my basic structure for my JavaScript program. So like we have to use an HTML opening tag, and then whenever we are writing any program in web development, we always have to make sure that we're using an opening HTML tag and then a closing HTML tag. Okay, so herein I have to use HTML opening tag and then a closing tag, and then the main section. Okay, the main logic of the program always relies in the body section of my program. Okay, so here in the body section of my program, what I'm doing is I am uh, using a print statement. As I told you, this is a print statement, document.write, and then the value which I'm printing is hello world. Okay, and then if it is a JavaScript program, I always have to make sure that I'm using an opening script tag and a closing script tag. This is an optional thing to make sure that my script type is a text or a JavaScript. Okay, but this is an option. Even if you don't write the document, it understands automatically whenever we are using an opening script tag and a closing script tag. Okay, so I hope everything is clear until now, class. Am I clear to everyone?
Yeah, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's just start. So like in the beginning of this programming session, what I'll do is I'll go from basic to advanced. Okay, so so that it's easy for everyone to understand. So first I'll run a hello world program using um, a hello world program to what do we say, to print and like to print hello world program. And then I'll just show you how do we use all the printing statements which I showed you, and then I'll try to run all the string methods, okay, which are there in JavaScript. So let's just start. So any kind of documents where when Okay, let me just also edit my font. So whenever I'm writing my JavaScript program, I have to make sure that I'm using doc type as HTML. Okay, so I'm writing doc type HTML, and then an opening HTML tag and a closing HTML tag, as I mentioned you. And then class, there are a lot of editors also available which you can use whenever you're using HTML. So like you can use Notepad plus plus. So in Notepad plus plus, it is easily available. You can just go on Google and then download Notepad plus plus and then install it. But what happens here is, class, if you are a beginner, so I would always suggest you to use normal Notepad. So for example, if you're doing any kind of errors, it would not come automatically. Okay, so that is the difference. And you can also use Visual Studios to run your HTML program. But if you are a beginner and if you want to learn, I would always suggest you to use basic Notepad. And then if you are if like whenever, like, if you get a hang of that language, then you can use all those editors and then you can write your program. And then here in, since I'll be using a header tag, so h1 is the highest one which we use header for a header. Okay, UCUMENT document dot write example. And then I'll close my header tag. And then, as I told you, in the body section of my program, I'll be writing my agenda. So herein, this is a JavaScript program, so I'm using script tag. And then inside my script tag, as I told you, what I'll be doing is, like, this is a simple hello world program. So using document.write, let's just print hello world. Document.write. And then the thing which I'm printing here is hello world. And then let's just come out of it and then end it with a semicolon. This is optional. Even if I don't use semicolon, I will not get any errors. Then I'll end my script tag, and then I'll end my body section, and then I'll end my HTML. So here in class, the difference which I was telling you is, if you'll be using Notepad plus plus, all this, if you're writing body section, if you're writing this body tag, opening body tag, closing body tag would come automatically. Okay, and then you can just write your logic in between. So that was the difference. This is my first program and I'm saving it with .html. Okay, let's just save it. So I hope this is clear. What I have used here is, I have used document.write, and then I'm printing a string. I'm printing a string statement which is hello.world into my console. So let's just go here. This is my program. No, this was not my program. This was my program, first underscore program. Okay, so let me just see. So here in my output, which I had was hello world, and then this was the header which I had given. Okay, is this clear to everyone? And then, like, the difference here is, in C++ also we can perform operations in print statements also. So let me just show you how do we perform any kind of operation. So since I was printing a string statement, I was using double quotes. So for example, if I want to perform an operation which is 6 plus 6, okay, so let me just save it and then we can rerun the output. For example, if I'm performing any kind of statement there in my output statements, so this is also one way to print your operations to, or to perform your operations in the output statements itself. Okay, and then what I can do here is, as I told you, like, we have document.write, and then let me just show you how do we use alert. So if I want to print my output as an alert message, so whenever I'm running my program, I want my output as an alert message. So let me just run this, rerun this. So herein I'm getting my output as an alert window. Okay, is this clear to everyone?
Yeah, ma'am.
And then we have one more function, like, this is alert, and we have one more function which is window.alert. Like, the output for both of them is same, but yeah, we can use any of them. So if I'm using window.alert or if I'm using only alert, it is same. Okay, it's clear, right?
Yeah.
So let me, what I'll do is like next output statement was like we have used document.write, we have used window.alert, we have used only alert, and then let's just use document.get element by id, and then let's just use inner HTML to print my statement. Okay, so let me just change this. This is inner HTML. So what I'll do is I'll remove the statement and then document ment document dot get, and then I'm declaring element element element, and then I'm declaring my id. So for that I'll be using document.element by id function, and then as I told you class, this is what I was telling, like we have to follow severe sensitivity of letters here. Okay, so if I'm not using any kind of so for example, if I'm using small e, I'll just do that error also, and then I'll show you how it happens. Okay, and then dot inner html. This is also case sensitive. And then the operation which I like to perform is, let's say 2 divided by 2, and then let's just end my statement, and then I have ended my script. And then so the catch here is whenever I'm using inner HTML and then whenever I'm using ID statement, I have to make sure that I'm declaring my ID also. So what I can do is I can just declare it above, like before my script tag, and then also I can just declare my ID here, but let's just declare it before script only. So using my h1 tag, I'll be using my paragraph tag, I'll be declaring my ID. Okay, so e id is equal to, and then herein I can give any kind of value. So for example, herein I have given demo. Okay, and then let's just close my id tag, and then let's just close the paragraph tag also, and then let's just save it. So herein what I have done is, and then whenever I am using in a HTML also, the ID which we have declared, we have to call that ID into my printing statement. Okay, so I have to call here demo, and I have to save my program. So herein what I'm doing is ID element is defining my HTML element, and using inner HTML I'm trying to print my content, or I'm trying to define my content. Okay, so let me just save it. Okay, so there is an error here, and it just print that. Mm, this is proper. What I have done is inner HTML I have declared, and using my paragraph tag before script, I'm declaring an ID. So I have used paragraph tag. Okay, let's just not do this, and then let's just declare like this: PID is equal to demo1, and then try to save. So if we can see, like the ID, like the error was like I had used 2 paragraphs tag, and then only I had 1 closing paragraph tag. Okay, so my ID is defining here my element, and then I'm getting my output for 2 divided by 2, which is 1. Okay, I hope this is clear for everyone.
Yeah.
So what I'll do here is, I'll try to, instead of doing this, I'll try to use variables to print my and to perform my operation. So as I told you, I'll be using let, char, and const to declare my variable. So herein I'm using let keyword, let a comma b comma c as my variables, and then I'll just assign some values also to my variables. So for example, I have given a for 4, and then b I have given maybe 4, b is equal to 4, and then inside my c I can just specify here what kind of operation I'm performing. So for example, I'm performing maybe a plus b. Okay, so I can just write here a plus b. And then instead of doing my operation in the output statement, what I can do here is I can print my C variable output as an operation. Okay. So herein what I'm doing is I have given some values to my A and B, and I have performed my operation on C. And then in my output statement, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to print my C. Okay. So let me just save it. Yeah, if you can see 4 plus 4, we got an output here. Is this clear, class, to everyone, or do you want me to repeat any topics?
No.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So what I'll do here is what's next. So let me just try to perform some string operations, okay? And then I'll delete this. So in JavaScript also we can perform string operations. So we have strlen as my string operation. So herein I can use length function to uh, define my to define the length of a particular string, and then we have uppercase, lowercase, caret, character at a particular position. So I can use all those. So what I'll do is I have all those things in common, and inside my script tag what I'll do is I'll declare two variables. So my variable's name would be str. You can give any names to your variable, but just for a quick understanding, I'm using this str keyword. Okay. And then if this is a string, I have to make sure that it is in double quotes. So let me just write web developer. Okay. And then since it is a string, I have to make sure that I'm ending it with a semicolons. Okay. And then I'll declare one more variable, which is length. Okay. And then inside my length, what I'll do is I'll try to perform my operation. Okay. So the operation which I'm doing is, so I'm using my first variable. So for which I want to find out the length. So for this value, I want to find out the length of this particular value. Okay. So the value is stored into which variable? It is stored into str variable. Okay. So herein I'm using str dot, and then the function, inbuilt function in JavaScript is to calculate the length is length. Okay. Str dot length, and then I'll end it with a semicolons. Okay. And then I want to print my length. This, like, I have achieved my agenda here till here to calculate the length of this particular string. Okay. But I want to print it also. If I just run my program, it would not give me any error till this stage, but I want to print it also. So what I'll use is document.write, and then I'll try to print the length. So the length is stored in which variable? It is stored in len variable. So I'll write here len. Then I'll close my braces. Is this clear, class, everyone? So let me just give you a quick recap again. So what I have done is I have declared two variables, which is str and len. Okay. Inside the str variable, the value which I have stored is web developer, and inside the length variable, what I want to do is I want to calculate this particular length. Okay. So I have called your str, the variable which I have declared first, and I have used dot operation, and then I have used an inbuilt function length in JavaScript to calculate the length of this particular variable. Okay. So for example, if I've given this name, this variable name as ABC, so what I'll do here is ABC dot length, and then here I'll try to print my length. Whatever the second operation in the second variable, whatever the operation which I have done, I'll try to do that. Let me just run it. What the count which I've got here is 13. So let me just check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So class, anybody is having any idea why I got output as 13?
Space, ma'am.
Yeah.
Space counter.
Yeah. So in JavaScript and other programming languages, space is always considered as one character. So for example, if I give 5 spaces and if I save my program, it would consider, okay, so it considered all my spaces as a character. Okay, so let me just show you another string method, which is lowercase. So for example, I want to perform lowercase on my str variable. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll use two lowercase operation. Okay, two, two lowercase, and then I'll print here the value which is storing my output. Okay, so let's. So I got my web developer into lowercase. But class, make sure whenever you're using all the string methods, you are following a case sensitivity. So for example, if you're using length function, you have to make sure that your L is in small letters. And then whenever you're using lowercase, you have to make sure that your L is in upper case and C is in uppercase. Okay, because that matters. And then let me just run this as an uppercase. And this is already in uppercase, so I'll not get my output. So I have saved it, and then we'll get web in uppercase. Is this clear, class, to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And then let's just use another string function, which is like if I want to replace a value. Okay, for example, this is web developer. Then I want to replace a value. I want to replace the a value. So what I'll do here is I'll remove this. So this would be common. Okay, so what I want to replace is str dot replace, and then herein I have to give two parameters, the value which I want to replace and the new value. Okay, so herein I want to replace web development with let's say today. So let me just give the new output. Okay, so here in the value which I've given, the value which I want to replace is web, and the new value in that place I want to put it as today. So I have used dot replace function of JavaScript, and then I'm printing my output. So let me just save it. So instead of web development, I got today development as an output. Okay, is this clear, class? Make sure that you're noting all the string functions, because if you'll get the assignments, you should not be in any doubt. So the next function I want to use here is, let me say, like character. If I want to find out a character at a particular position, so the value with the function which I'll be using is char at. Okay, so char, and then A is my caps lock. So I want to find out the character at 3. Okay, so indexing, class. So indexing is also an important topic. So indexing starts from 0. So 0, 1, 2. So I want to find out the value of B. Okay, so herein I'll give 2. So it should, like, the output should be as B, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so the character at 2 is B. So let's just see if you're getting. Yeah. So as per indexing methodology, the output or the variable at 2 is B. So we'll get an output. And even space is considered as an one index. Okay. So if I put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I'm giving here 6, it should be V. And then we can see. Let me just recall. I have used replace uppercase, lowercase. Yeah. I guess I'm done with all the string methodologies. Let me just check if I have any more programs. Yeah. Let me just open function example. So as I told you, class, everything would just remain normal. So I just told you how do we declare an IDs using paragraph tag. So here in my program, what I'm doing is I'm using paragraph tag to declare my IDs. Okay, so I have declared two IDs, and then I'm printing here two values. In one value, I'm printing good morning, and then in the other value, I'm printing good. And then I have called the IDs which I have declared demo one and demo two, and then like I'm just declaring this output statements in what I'm declaring inside a function. So as I told you, to declare a function in JavaScript, we have to use the function keyword followed by the function name and the round brackets. So this is what we have to do whenever we are using function. And then all my the value which, like whatever values which are there inside my function, we have to make sure that we're using it, or we are declaring it within a curly braces. So I have declared my function within a curly braces. Okay, and then I'm calling my function. And then how, like, this is how I would declare. But how do I call my function is I have to use an event. So here in the event which I'm using is on click. Okay, so I have declared a button. I'll teach you how do we declare buttons and all those things in I'm whenever I'm covering HTML and CSS class. So like to declare a button, I have to use button keyword, and then the type and my button type is button, and then the event which I'm performing on my button is on click, and then on the click of my button what I am doing is I'm calling my function. Okay, so herein I have declared my function. I know how do we declare a function. And then but we also, like, if I run this program without the statement, I'll not get anything. I'll not get any output, because the function would not know how to because the program would not understand where is my function being called. So to call my function, I'm using here an event on click. Okay, so let me just run this program. So as I told you, on the click of a button event, my function should be called. Okay, so on the click of my button, I'm getting my outputs. Is this clear, class, to everyone?
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I guess I covered all the programs. I showed you how do we declare variables. I showed you all the printing statements, which I covered in last session also. And then I'm done with all the tags. Any doubts, class, anybody is having? I'll give you this PPT and I'll give you all the programs which I covered today.
No, ma'am.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Bye. Take care.
thank you, man.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. And then, class, if I'm sorry, I just missed this part. You'll get your assignments from your mentors. And then, if you have any kind of doubts in your assignments, you can reach out to me always.
Sure, man.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, class. You can leave the meeting. Bye.
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 Thank you, ma'am.